We'll get started. The topic today is about web client, and we're calling that yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So we'll talk about some of the stuff in the past, as well as more focus about what's available today, and then give you a brief preview in terms of what's coming up as well. So my name is June Yang. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management at VMware, focused on vSphere. And with me here is my colleague, Ivor Bolshov, and he's the R&D Manager for web client. So we'll be doing some tag teaming in the presentation. So as we're going to be talking about forward-looking features that's under development, I am required to show you this slide. These items we're talking about in terms of future development is subject to change. So in terms of the agenda, we want to talk about a number of topics. One is about HTML5. This is definitely one of the highly requested features and the capabilities for the product, and we want to give you a preview in terms of what's to come. The second is really talking about what's available in the market today, vSphere 6.0, and with also that we have shipped 6.0 U1 just in the last few weeks. We want to talk about the improvements we have made in that area. And lastly, we'll give you a preview in terms of some new and cool stuff to come. So in terms of the presentation, we have structured the presentation to reflect your feedback. And this is what we call the voice of the customers. And there are a number of areas that's been in terms of top concerns from the customer side. And we want to be able to address each one of those areas and tell you what we have done as well as our plans forward. So one of the top areas I want to address right off the bat is about the Flash. As many of you know, the current web client is based on Flash. And Flash, unfortunately, is a dying technology, so we do have plans in that area to address that. And the second area is really about navigation. And many of the folks really like the C# client, sometimes also called VI client, FAT client, etc. And talk about what it means to be able to find things more easily on the web client. We'll talk about a number of improvements we have made in that area. Certainly, we'll talk about the performance issues. We have made great strides in that area in the 6.0, and our work is not done. We have continued plans in that area as well. And finally, on the web client, it's been under development for a couple years, and there are still some feature gaps and so forth. And with the 6.0 U1, we have largely brought it to parity, and we want to talk about some of the areas we have developed and capability we have developed there. So let's talk about HTML5. HTML5 clearly is a direction we want to take our product towards. And the first foray we're making in that area is what we call the vSphere host client. The host client is used for customers who don't necessarily have vCenter, or if they're troubleshooting for vCenter, if vCenter is down for some reason. And it allows you to manage a single host and performs all the essential functions. And we released the HTML5 version of this as a fling back in August of this year, and we got some really great feedback around it in terms of its performance, in terms of easy use, and so forth. And we certainly appreciate those early feedbacks, and that we incorporated many of those feedback, as well as added additional functionality very quickly over since about 2 months ago. And we've released several updates to this particular fling, and we're in the process of productizing that as well. So we definitely highly encourage folks to try it out and give us your feedback and let us know what you think and what areas we want to improve upon. We have taken a very interactive approach to this and a very agile approach to this in terms of developing something and be able to add updates very, very quickly. So this is something that we think that have worked well for us. We have really gotten good feedback from the customer and really understand what improvement is necessary to add to the product. So this is the approach we like to take for the additional client work that we have plans as well. So our ask to you is to try it out, download it, try it out, let us know what you think. The second area I want to talk about in terms of HTML5 is, of course, the web client. Web client has many capabilities, and it's the primary tool that customers use to interact with vSphere. And it is coming. It is something that's under development right now, and it's coming. So we want you to rest assured that this is something we're working on. So this is just a screenshot, and you notice that it actually looks quite similar to the existing web client. We don't plan to change the UI drastically and really kind of try to maintain things that worked well for the web client, and really just change the technology backend to switch from a Flash-based technology to H5-based technology. Probably the only difference you're going to see is that it's actually H5-based. So with this, we also want to take an agile approach, and we plan to release a fling initially, get your feedback very quickly, and be able to add additional functionality and release this in a much more agile and iterative fashion. So that's kind of our plan on HTML5, and I highly encourage everyone to start trying out web client and give us a feedback, and those feedback and so forth we can incorporate into the future H5 client. So switching gears a little bit and talk about what's actually available now in the market. So this is the vSphere 6. That's our latest release. And with that, as I mentioned earlier, we have made some really drastic improvement around the web client. And here are some Twitter feeds that folks have sent to us that's really talking specifically about the web client. Twitter feeds, it's actually probably the most direct way and near real-time way that we get feedback from a customer nowadays. So I encourage you guys to feel free to, as you try out the web client, to send us feedback via Twitter. And we definitely monitor that pretty closely and to see what folks say about it. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, and he's going to take us through and talking about the rest of the improvements around the vSphere 6 client.
Good afternoon from me too. So, as June said, large part of this presentation is structured around feedback and what you have told us. June covered your feedback about the web client being on Flash and our direction moving off of it. Now, something else that we've been hearing pretty consistently is that you have difficulties working with the web client in terms of finding your way around, especially those of you who are used with the legacy VI client and its navigation model. So in the next several slides, I'll talk about some of the improvements that we are bringing in vSphere 6 in order to address this feedback. And the first one is with regards to a particular challenge that we have identified, that our users actually do a lot of up and down navigation in the web client. And what I mean is, so for example, if you need to take a look at a particular host configuration, what you would do is start from the home page, drill several levels deep to the corresponding host view, and do your job from over there. Now, what happens if you need to switch context and go to a storage view? You will go up to the home page again, and from over there, drill down again to the corresponding storage view. Now, this is obviously a suboptimal user experience, and it does involve a bit of unnecessary clicks around. It also makes you feel you're getting lost. It's like me in Barcelona. Any time that I need to go to a new location, I first go to Platz Catalunya, and from over there I know how to make my way around. So what we have done in vSphere 6 is that we are adding a shortcut between different inventory views in the web client. This shortcut is available as a menu upon hovering the home button. And from over there, it's only one click away to switch context and go from hosts and clusters to virtual machines and templates, from virtual machines and templates to storage, from storage to networking. Pretty much anything that is available on the home screen is now available within that shortcut menu. With this, you'll have less clicks making your way around, and this will reduce the need for you to go to the home page that often. Going to another feedback, and this is something that we've heard loud and clear. You have difficulties working with the action menus in the web client, and more particularly with the fact that you need to go several levels deep into the action menu in order to reach an action which is pretty common from administrative point of view. Let's take, for example, powering off a virtual machine. In order to power off a virtual machine in vSphere 5.5, you would need to right-click on a virtual machine, go to all vCenter actions, from over there to power, and from power, power off the virtual machine. Now, this is not only too many levels deep in order to reach power off, which is pretty common functionality, but it also does bring a bit of confusion. Why certain actions, such as powering off a virtual machine, are buried several levels deep into the menu, where others, similar in semantics, such as power on virtual machine, are promoted and are readily available on the first level of the action menu. In vSphere 6, we have significantly reduced the complexity of the action menus. We have flattened them, and we have grouped similar actions in terms of semantics together. Now the action menus look a lot more familiar to you and a lot more intuitive. Let's take the same example. Now, if you need to power off a virtual machine, you right-click on a virtual machine, you'll go to Power section, and from over there you have all the power operations right next to each other. Now, next improvement that I'm going to talk about in vSphere 6 is my favorite, and it's because from engineering perspective, it's a pretty simple one, but it does bring a lot of customer value. So in vSphere 5.5 and previous versions, there was a twofold problem with the recent tasks. First, they were hard to troubleshoot because of the limited real estate provided and limited data provided for the recent tasks. Second, they weren't simply placed where you expected them to be. So again, in vSphere 6, we have listened to you. We have simply moved the recent tasks at the bottom of the web client. This automatically gives us more real estate. We fed that real estate with the needed data, and now it's a lot more easier for you to troubleshoot a failed recent task, for example. And for those of you who've been using the VI client / C# client / legacy client, this looks a lot more familiar. In the same line of improvements and changes, something pretty cool that we've done in vSphere 6 is that we have added the ability for you to customize the web client in terms of layout. Now you're able to move things around and place panes, place widgets where you best think they will fit for you. For example, you can click on a pane and you can drag it, again, to a location where you think it best belongs. In this particular case, what I've done is I've moved the alarms and the work in progress panes at the bottom right corner of the web client. And actually, this is a pretty valid scenario because this automatically gives more real estate for the virtual machines data grid, and now you are able to see more columns of the virtual machines. Another more extreme example. You can do a mirror layout setting of the original layout setting of the web client by moving the object navigator on the right-hand side, and I've been told that this might be more useful for people working with their left hand. And if you change too many things around, if you get lost, you always have the opportunity to reset to default layout settings by simply invoking the layout settings dialog from the username at the top of the web client. Now, we've talked about Flash, we've talked about that it's difficult to find your way around in the web client and what we're doing about. Another hot area is the performance and the responsiveness of the web client, an area where the engineering team has been spending a lot of effort and time trying to improve this. And I'll be showing a couple of use cases where we've done significant improvements. Probably those use cases are the ones that customers have been most vocal about. And I'll be doing this with videos, comparing the performance of the vSphere web client in 5.5 and vSphere 6. The first use case is about the time it takes in order to load the summary page of an object. Pretty important thing because summary pages are, users navigate to them a lot. You see them very often, so it's important to be quick and snappy. So what you see on the screen is a video of a user navigating to 5 different objects in the inventory, and when clicking on an object, waiting for the summary page to load completely. The timer on the top calculates the total time needed for the summary pages to load, and it doesn't take into account the time needed for the mouse moving around and clicking on the objects. So in vSphere 5.5, it took a little bit more than 13 seconds in order to load the summary pages of 5 different objects in the web client. On the right-hand side, the same scenario, a user navigating to the same 5 objects. But this is vSphere 6. And even without looking at the timer on the top, it's obviously faster. And when this finishes, and it actually already completed, it's going to end up on about 5 seconds. Just a reminder, on the left-hand side in vSphere 5.5, it was about 13 seconds. So it's about a bit more than 2 times performance improvement. The next use case, and this is something that, again, our users have been very vocal about. How much time it does take in order the action menus to get resolved, to get loaded completely. vSphere 5.5, click, and I can actually tweet about it now. It's going to take some time. And in vSphere 5.5, it takes 6.5 seconds. Again, on the right-hand side is going to be vSphere 6. Click, and it's half a second. It's about 13 times performance improvement. Now, in terms of performance improvements, again, these are just 2 examples, concrete examples, where we have done significant improvement. But actually, we have touched the entire application. We have touched areas such as virtual machine, networking, host, storage, everywhere. Some of those performance improvements that we have done are with the same magnitude. Some are smaller, some are bigger. Take a look at the performance charts in vSphere 6. If you haven't done so in the past releases, because they didn't load, or they were loading forever. Now they're actually pretty fast and usable. And something else which is very important about the performance improvements. The majority of those are syncing in the underlying layers, and those are not related with the technology, whether it's Flash or H5 as a presentation layer. So those performance improvements that we are doing now and that we will continue to do in the future will kick in pretty well with the next version of the web client on H5 once we release it. Now quickly changing topics and going from performance usability improvements in vSphere 6 to features which are actually available with vSphere 5.5. Why going back in the time? Can I get a quick poll of hands? How many of you are on vSphere 5.5 right now? It's probably like 75% of the room. And that's why we're going back in vSphere 5.5. Even right now, before the session, I've been talking with some of you, and I've been told that there are features in the web client that you don't know about, and you'll be happy to hear. So I'll be showing 5 features, 5 tips and tricks that can actually make your experience with the web client a little bit better. And the first one is that you are actually able to perform batch operations in the web client. Now, for the sake of honesty, not all actions are available in batch, but the most important ones, such as in this case, powering on, powering off a virtual machine, you can perform on multiple objects. So you go shift-click, select multiple virtual machines, and you can power on, power off, suspend all the power operations on multiple virtual machines. Number 2, the history button. The history button in the web client looks exactly as the history in your browser. One click to go back, right click to get more recently visited objects, and the little arrow right on the right hand side of the button is for forward navigation. Number 3, recent objects. This little curly button over there, and actually not many of you know that this is a button, but this allows you to review the last 10 visited objects, the last 10 objects that you have worked with. And something that is nice about this functionality is that this is persistent across user sessions. So if you need to go home, you change your, you close your browser or change the computer. Once you log in with the same user, you can go and see what are the 10 objects that we have worked lastly. Number 4, this is a screenshot of a wizard. And the thing about wizards in the web client, and actually this holds true for the VI client too, some of them are really lengthy and they require you to put quite some data in it. And it will be really unfortunate if in the middle of the wizard you get an emergency call, you need to go do something else, you need to go home or go to work, and you need to cancel the wizard, and you get lost. I mean, you lose all the information you have provided. Or another use case, you reach a point at the wizard where you have to actually provide some more data that you don't have readily available, and you need to go to a different page in the web client, hence close the wizard, and then start over again. So we have this functionality in the wizards, the little 2 arrows on the right top corner that allow you to minimize the wizard in the so-called work in progress area. And from over there, you can navigate to a different page, or you can close the browser, you can go home. Once you log in with the same user, because this is also persistent across user sessions, you can pick up the wizard and continue from where you left off. Now, something that makes this functionality really valuable and quite difficult for implementation, but if in the meantime, while you have been away, something in the underlying virtual infrastructure changes that invalidates the data that you have provided, once you restore the wizard, we'll do the validation for you, and we'll show you that there is data which is outdated and you need to change. Rather than going through the rest of the wizard, click finish, and then it just crashes or with parameter not available, parameter not correct. And last but not least, you can bookmark any page in the web client. After all, this is a web application. So a couple of use cases, if there is a location in the web client which you cannot remember how to navigate to a particular page or setting, you can bookmark it. Or if you need to explain to a colleague of yours that he or she need to focus on a particular virtual machine, particular setting, rather than explaining, go to this virtual machine, click here and there, navigate to here, you can just send an email with the bookmark of this particular location in the web client. And something that product managers like to do with this feature a lot is, how many of you actually knew all 5 of these features? Can I get a show of hands? It's like 5 people for 5 features. I'm glad that not much of you knew about this, because this actually means that this is useful and you can pick it up, and I'm pretty sure that this will make your experience with the web client a bit better. A quick recap of what we have covered in the session so far. So June covered the H5 future and the direction where VMware and the web client team is moving in terms of technology. I've talked about the performance improvements, tens, hundreds, that we have done in vSphere Web Client 6. And since like 75% of you are running vSphere 5.5, if you don't plan to upgrade to 6.0 or update 1 in the near future, which I strongly advise you to do, you can pick up those performance improvements in vSphere 5.5 Update 3 that we have just released last week, I think. Yeah, last week. So it's available. And those performance improvements, like 95% of those are backported to the previous version, so you can take advantage of it. And we'll be doing more performance and usability improvements in the web client, more features, and some of those are actually coming with vSphere 6.0 Update 1. I shouldn't be saying coming because between the session in San Francisco and now, we have actually released vSphere 6.0 Update 1, so it's available for you right now. And we'll be talking about some of the features over there. Something else that pretty much everybody working on the web client have been hearing. Yes, guys, you're doing performance improvements. You're doing usability improvements, adding functionality, but there are still things which we can use in the VI client, and those are not available in the web client. The web client still is not on parity with the vSphere VI client. That's what we hear from our users. So let's talk about this. And one particular feedback that we've heard, again, loud and clear, is with regards to the refresh rate of the state of the objects in both clients. Being live in the VI client and having some delay in the vSphere web client, especially in the cases where there are multiple users connected to the same vSphere web client and one user monitoring the actions, the tasks that others perform for troubleshooting or just for monitoring purposes. The so-called live refresh of recent tasks and also alarms fall in the same category. In vSphere 6.0 Update 1, we have live refresh of recent tasks and alarms in the web client. Now, the thing is that with the legacy VI client, how this worked was pretty heavy on the virtual center server. And actually, this was one of the reasons why you can reach the famous widescreen of death for the VI client. And actually, you could bring the virtual center server down with hammering it with requests for updates of tasks, alarms, and different objects. In the web client, we are doing totally different implementation. And it's easy going on the virtual center server, and actually it's a bit more performant. And live refresh of recent tasks and alarms is the first step we're taking in this direction. Now we're investigating and working how to bring live refresh of the state of the objects in the inventory, virtual machines, etc. once the state is changed from a user different than who you are at the moment logged in. VUM. Where is VUM in the vSphere web client? Even if you make the performance of the web client the best, even if you bring all the usability improvements, when I need to upgrade my hosts, I'm using VUM, and because VUM is not available in the web client, once I go to the VI client, why should I bother even going back to the web client? I will not go in explaining in details why it took us so long, but it's better late than never. But now in vSphere 6 Update 1, we are bringing full functionality in the web client for VUM. Everything that was available, everything that is still available in the VI client for VUM is now available within the web client. And since I've been part of the team working on this, we had clear goals. It was like, if you know how to work with the web client, you know the navigation model, it's not like the first time you see the web client, and you've been working with VUM in the VI client, you should have zero downtime in order to figure out how to work with the VUM in the web client. So we have kept the same workflows, the same usability, which have good and bad things, but we figured out that we won't change anything just to bring it as familiar as possible to you. I think a couple of releases back, VMware switched from custom attributes to tags. It turned out that there are users, some users have use cases that cannot be satisfied with tags. And they use custom attributes and still use custom attributes. With the announcement that vSphere is moving away from custom attributes to tagging, pretty much the only functionality that was available and still actually is still available in the web client is to migrate custom attributes to tags. We are working on bringing full functionality for custom attributes within the web client, creating, deleting, editing, everything. You see on the top it says tech preview, which means it's not available in 6.0, it's not update 1. And since the format of the session, I'm not allowed to speak when, neither to commit. For example, I'm not allowed to say that this will come in the next release, for example. I didn't say that. Then you see how we are moving probably. So we've covered some things that were available in the VI client as functionality and are part of the official releases. Now a few things, but it's not only about functionality from VMware and the main product. It's also about the ecosystem and tools around this functionality. Again, quick poll of hands. How many of you are using Power CLI? Ooh, like more than half of the room. I used to work in the Power CLI team. And those of you who are using Power CLI, you probably do remember the famous project Onyx. For those of you who don't remember or don't know what is Onyx, Onyx is a plugin for the VI client that allows you to monitor the actions, the clicks in the VI client, and generates the corresponding Power CLI script out of those clicks. You can then take this Power CLI script, tweak it here and there, put some perimeters, and use it as a reusable script later on for automation purposes. Now, the problem with the Onyx is that since we released it several years back, it always has been a plugin only for the VI client. It's a Flink, which means it's not an officially supported product, but it actually has a release quality, and it works great. I am happy to say that in the last several months, a year, we've been working closely with the Power CLI team, and now we have released a Flink of Onyx for the vSphere web client. You can go to labsvmware.com/flink/Onyx for vSphere web client. You can download it, try it. It pretty much has the same functionality as the one for the VI client, but now it's a plugin for the web client. It works. Give us your feedback, and we'll see whether we can turn this into officially supported product. Now, moving for things that were available for the VI client but weren't available for the web client, to things that we are bringing only for the web client. And when we talk about integration between Power CLI and the web client, one thing that is pretty cool is Power Actions. So Power Actions is two things. It's a plugin. First of all, it's a plugin for the vSphere web client. You won't get it for the VI client. And on one hand, it gives you an interactive Power CLI console integrated with the web client. That's what you see on the screen. So basically, you can execute any Power CLI command within that Power CLI or PowerShell command within that console. And if that action has anything to do with the virtual infrastructure, you see the results in your object navigator and your objects in the web client. If you think about it, for the Power CLI users, this actually means that you can now run Power CLI, which is a Microsoft technology, in a browser, meaning that you can run it on a Mac or on a Linux machine. Of course, you need to have somewhere a Windows machine on which you install Power Actions as a serving host, but you can reach that machine from anywhere, from your browser. And the second thing that Power Action gives you, it uses the extensibility model of the vSphere web client, and it actually allows you to extend any object with a custom action or a report. So if you want to create some custom action for a virtual machine, for example, a virtual machine object, you go right-click on a virtual machine, you say Power CLI, create a script, and from over there, you define this action with a Power CLI script that you write or that you grab from the community. Next time when you log in, you or anybody else, you can choose to save these scripts just for yourself or share it with everybody who is using this vSphere web client and has the permission. When you reach a virtual machine object and you right-click, this action will be right over there for you. You want to report all the virtual machines that are running low on memory or has old snapshots or whatever. You can create a script on a cluster or on data center level. Actually, there is a pretty famous one from Alan Renault of doing that. You can put it over here and you can execute it from the web client. You'll get the results in a nicely integrated data grid within the web client. Talking about things that are available only for the vSphere web client, two products which are very popular among our users for bootstrapping their virtual infrastructure and rapidly deploying multiple ESXi hosts, stateless ESX hosts, is how to deploy an image builder. The problem with how to deploy an image builder is that since they were released, they never had a full-blown user interface for managing them. Actually, how to deploy did have a fling for the VI client, plugin for the VI client that you could use for managing how to deploy, but its support ends up somewhere between 5.1 and 5.5, I'm not pretty sure. Now, we are working on bringing full functionality for how to deploy an image builder in the vSphere web client. Again, it's a tech preview, you know what this means. Something else that VMware is working on, different teams collaborating between each other, is you probably know Socialcast. Socialcast is VMware's enterprise social collaboration networking platform. So Socialcast now have an app for your Android or for your iPhone, which you can tie Socialcast with vSphere alarms. And then on your mobile app, you can see if an alarm goes red or however you have defined it, and you can start collaborating by doing Socialcast streams and discussing what's wrong with this object. This is available now, but what we are working on is actually integrating Socialcast within the web client. So what we are thinking of having on the summary pages of an object, have a portlet with about Socialcast, and then people can actually collaborate and discuss this particular object, if there is something wrong with it or whatever. Something else that we didn't have for the VI client was a single location where you can actually monitor, and actually you can see plugins defined by our partners, by our ecosystem for the vSphere web client. A single location where you can go and see which company, which partner has a plugin for the web client, I mean, for the VA client in the past. Now, if you go to VMware Solution Exchange, the web client plugins tab over there. If you click on the link, you see a list of plugins available for the vSphere web client on one location. Now, with this, we're done with the performance usability improvements in the web client, which are available within vSphere 6, vSphere 6 Update 1, and some things that are coming up in a future version of the product. Since I've been talking quite a bit, we want to do the last section of this presentation a bit more interactive. And we will do some polling. We will do polling about features that we are thinking of bringing initially within the vSphere web client, and then those will come with the H5 client too. And June, as our PM, will explain us how this works, and I'll be assisting.
So this is the part of the presentation. We actually want audience participation. So folks, do get your smartphones or your laptops out. And as we're going to talk about, take a series of polls on various features we are thinking about, planning to work on. And we'd like to get you to weigh in on this and tell us what your thoughts are, whether there should be something we work on or something we should scrap. So we're using this tool called Poll Everywhere. So on your laptop or on your smartphone, you can type in poll ev.com/webclient, or if you prefer to use a text, you can pick the phone number that's appropriate for you, and then type in web client, and then we'll give you instructions on what to type in. So I'll pause here for a second while you're trying to figure out the phone number and be able to type it in. If you don't see your country on there, you can certainly use the EU number in there. And as Yvonne was saying, that we're going to be talking about the series of features and we're thinking about. And we're going to be, some of those going to be polling questions, some of them are not going to be polling questions. We're spacing those polling questions apart a little bit so that we give you sufficient time to actually to submit your answers and for us to be able to get sufficient answers and close the poll before we move on to the next one. Okay. Hopefully everyone has got your numbers kind of listed on here. We'll move on. So let's do a practice poll first.
It's 5 o'clock.
How do you enter the answer? So we want to know about what environment you're currently working on, 5.5 or 6.0. Earlier we saw that just by the hand raising that a majority of the folks in this room are on 5.5. So if you're on 5.5 and you're using web client on a regular basis, choose A. If you're using VI client as your regular basis, choose B. And then if you're on vSphere 6 and you're on the web client on the regular basis, choose C. And if you're on vSphere 6 and on the VI client, choose D. Okay. And then the email address, sorry, not the email address, the URL as well as the phone number are repeated here for your convenience. So take a moment to enter, and we're getting data.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll leave the poll open for a few minutes, a few seconds, while we talk about the next feature. Then we'll close the poll and show you the results as well. Okay, we're talking about a series of sneak peek, so we're looking for your feedback here. So as we continue to work on vSphere web client, we have done quite a lot of performance improvement as part of the 6.0, but our work is not done there. We realize that there's still areas that where the web client still trailing the C# / VI client. And so we'll continue to work on those areas to make this better and faster. One thing as part of the update 1 release that we put out there is actually a customer telemetry. So it gives us information in terms of how you're using the client, where you potentially have performance issues, as well as navigation issues. So as you are setting up, upgrading to update 1, please do opt into this capability so that we can actually have information about how you're using the client and give us quantitative data for help us to focus on areas of issues that you might be experiencing. So let's switch over and take a look at how this polling is working. It's not the right one.
Here we go. And I will look the results now.
So not too surprisingly, we still have a number of folks who are using VI client on the 5.5, by far the majority here. I hope that after this session, more of you would switch to start taking a look at the web client more seriously and use it on a regular basis. As we have published before, the VI client is something that we are planning to deprecating. So we do encourage to switch to the web client as soon as possible. Okay, the next, we're going to close this poll and we're going to open up the next poll. And this is about web client upgrade. So as currently the web client capabilities is shipped together with vSphere. So there's only a certain release cadence that we can be able to introduce new functionality for the web client. And as part of this feature, what we like to do is give you a standalone upgrade option and allow you to be able to upgrade your web client independently of the rest of vCenter and vSphere. And this will allow us to be able to bring capability to you at a much faster pace. So for example, the live refresh of recent tasks was something actually we were able to develop pretty quickly. And however, we didn't have a release vehicle to be able to ship that. So you had to wait until the major release for us to ship that. So the standalone upgrade will allow us to be able to ship capabilities at a more rapid pace than we would normally with vSphere. And particularly think about going to the HTML5 as we're introducing more functionalities. This would be very useful. So for folks who like this feature, so if you choose A, that means you don't really care, not something you're planning to use. Choose B means you like it and probably something you will use. And choose C means you love it and this is something you could have used yesterday. So let's take a moment to vote on this. And we'll move on to the next feature. We'll keep the poll open for a few more seconds. Okay. The next is a series of UI enhancement to really help you to reduce clicks and make things a little bit easier to find. So the first thing I want to highlight is the recent object menu. So this was previously part of the history button. You see this little icon, looks a little bit like a refresh icon. So most folks, actually a number of folks were confused and not quite sure what this icon does and was kind of afraid to click it. So we've actually created its own portlet and to be able to show this information much more readily and much easier to see. So now you can see the most recent objects that you have just either created or have just viewed, and in its own panel. The other thing we are planning to add, or thinking about adding, is the action button at the top. So as you're navigating through the inventory tree and navigating a different object, this will give you a way to be able to actually pick the object and then select the most common actions that you would see. Previously, this was a little bit more embedded. You can use a right click, or there's a little overall action button. So this is something that's an improvement as well. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and close the poll for the previous question and then come back to show you what the audience participation tells us. Okay. So the majority of folks on the standalone upgrade was quite favorable, and this is consistent with the answer we've seen from the previous sessions as well. Okay. Let's switch back. This one?
Yep.
Okay. The next one is a polling question. This is what we call the go-to menu. So as part of the right click, you have a series of actions you can take. And one of the things we're thinking about potentially add is this go-to option. And this go-to option allows you to be able to quickly navigate to the next set of tabs and sub-tabs. So in terms of the tabs, typically you have summary, monitor, manage, and recent related objects. We allow you to kind of go there very quickly, and then even the next layer up. For example, under the manage, you might have settings and tags and permission. So if you know exactly what particular sub-tab you're trying to get to, this is a very easy and quick way for you to get there. So again, consistent with the last polling question, if it's something that you don't really care for, choose A. If it's something that you like and potentially will use, choose B. If it's something that you think is really cool and really awesome and you definitely want to use it, choose C. Okay. All right. We'll keep this poll open for a little bit and then move on to the next one. Okay. This one is kind of a small change, action labels. So we've always had icons there, and as we have more and more actions coming up, sometimes these icons are kind of small and it's pretty hard to see, and it's kind of hard to distinguish what action that is. So some customers have asked us to actually add words to it and describe what this action is. So this is the option, to show you when you VM, deploy OVF, and so forth. Just give you a little bit more information about what those icons actually means. This is something that if we do implement it, it will be configurable. So it's something you can turn on or turn off as you see fit. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the previous poll and take a look at your participation. Okay, go to menu. Okay, not quite as popular as the standalone upgrade. Okay. Switch back. Okay, this is our last polling question of the day. This is about related objects. I don't know how many of you guys use related objects, but one of the feedback we got from the users is that it's a little bit hard to actually figure out how to use it and what information it actually contains. So this one, we took some lessons from the C# client and actually offer you kind of more subcategories of objects that's related to that. So for example, if we are talking on the cluster, we'll show you that the related host, VMs, data stores, and network. And of course, this is context sensitive, so it depends on what object you're choosing, this particular menu will change as well. So this one will give you more information about what you're looking at and hopefully make it easier to use. So if this is something that you think is a good idea, please vote. Choose A if it's something you don't really care, you don't think it's very valuable. B if you like it. C if you love it. Okay? Okay. We'll keep the polling open for a little bit while we move on. So in closing, we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about HTML5 as the future direction for the web client and host client, and something we're actively working on. And as Ivor have said, the learnings we have done with the Flash-based web client, the navigation, the performance, and a lot of the optimization we have done, those will carry forward as part of H5. The next area we talked about is really about web client improvements in 6.0 and 6.0 U1. And we talked about performance improvements in the number of areas. We talked about usability, navigational improvements to make it easier for you to find things, and in many cases, more similar to the C# client. And of course, we also talked about feature parity, a lot of additional functionality that's added for the web client as part of the release for 6.0, 6.0 U1, as well as something we're working on.
Okay, let's take a look at the last question.
Let's show you the results on the related object. So kind of even on this one as well. Okay. All right. So great. Thank you for the participation on the polling. That's helpful us to understand, get a pulse of the kind of what you think, what area we should be focusing on or not focus on. And before we end this session, I do want to share with you an unofficial wiki that one of my product manager has created for this. And a lot of the information that you have seen as part of this presentation, a lot of tips and tricks and so forth, those information are published as part of this web client wiki. And it is meant to be crowdsourcing. So while we have started the initial part, we do encourage you to contribute. If there are things that you have, tips and tricks that you have learned that's quite useful, do publish it here. And this is something that we definitely encourage the community to support and to be able to participate as well. So
before we go to Q&A, yeah.
So we do take your feedback seriously, and we're always looking for a way to improve. So do fill out the survey, give us your thoughts and information, what you think about this session, and we can use this to help us to to make it better for the future. So that ends our presentation portion of this session, and we can open up for some Q&A. And we have about
5 minutes, so we can do a quick Q&A over here, and then you can reach us, and we can continue talking either over here or outside of the room and take your feedback.
All right. Thank you very much for participating today, and we will have folks.
Thank you.